Hello friends, I'm Dr. Sheetal Badami. I'm an aesthetic physician and I run my clinic by the name of Define Aesthetics in Pune, India. Today I'm going to talk about adverse effects of sedentary lifestyles, inflammation and high glucose induced oxidative stress and present the data on a clinical trial conducted on diabetic and pre-diabetic patients using a waveform technology. Well, today we are in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, which has taken innumerable lives. And this has also forced all of us to connect virtually today. But I'm here to talk about another pandemic. And unlike the COVID-19, this one is a silent killer. Friends, I'm talking about none other than the pandemic of obesity. Nearly 30% of world's population is either overweight or obese today. A study published in Lancet says that India is just behind US and China in the global hazard list of top 10 countries with highest number of obese people. Physical inactivity or sedentary lifestyle is a major cause for obesity. It leads to decreased muscle mass and adipose tissue accumulation, which further generates systemic inflammation and oxidative damage. Obesity has various adverse effects on our body. These include insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, abnormal lipid profile, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, cardiovascular diseases, pulmonary complication, infertility, and so on. Insulin resistance forms a cornerstone of a cascade of disorders called as metabolic syndrome. This includes obesity, especially abdominal fat or visceral adiposity, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia, hypertension, PCOD, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There is insulin resistance, which leads to hyperinsulinemia, which is a main factor involved in pathogenesis of this metabolic syndrome. There are various theories which suggest why obesity leads to insulin resistance. Obese people have higher levels of various substances like glycerol, non-esterified fatty acids, and various pro-inflammatory substances. Out of these, non-esterified fatty acid levels are very important as far as the insulin resistance is concerned. And there has been shown a direct correlation between increased levels of non-esterified fatty acids and development of insulin resistance. Another factor which governs the insulin resistance is the distribution of body fat. It is shown that individuals with visceral adiposity are more insulin resistant than the ones whose fat is more peripherally distributed. Insulin resistance ultimately leads to progressive beta cell dysfunction, and the impairment of beta cell dysfunction is what causes diabetes development. Visceral adipose tissue is also shown to be strongly linked with COVID-19 patients needing mechanical ventilation irrespective of their BMIs. The possible mechanisms include the associated inflammation. Visceral adipose tissue is having higher expression of ACE2 receptors. Abdominal obesity causes altered dynamics of pulmonary ventilation because of reduced diaphragmatic excursion. So, any method that reduces the abdominal obesity and visceral adipose tissue can serve as a protective and preventive measure during this health crisis. Now, let's talk about physical activity. Physical activity has known to improve cardiovascular fitness, increase muscle mass, improve blood glucose regulation, and reduce visceral fat and triglycerides. Various studies have shown this. Studies conducted with 8 weeks of aerobic exercise have shown reduction in visceral adipose tissue and fatty liver. Resistance training has resulted in improved lower levels of low density lipoprotein and also improvement in muscular strength and muscle mass. Short-term exercise appears to be somewhat effective in reducing visceral fat, but to reduce visceral fat effectively and to sustain it and to treat the obesity and associated hyperlipidemia and insulin resistance, long-term physical activity is required. And this is where most of the challenge comes because most of the patients find it difficult to sustain the physical activity for long term. So various studies have been conducted using different technologies to find an alternate or a supportive to physical activity. A study conducted with low-level laser therapy combined with exercise reported visceral fat reduction. However, it was unclear if the results were due to the laser or the exercise. Another study with RF also showed overall fat reduction, but there was no clear indication of visceral adipose tissue decrease. Hence, I, along with Dr. Zofra Zania, we conducted a clinical trial with a new technology from London University. This technology synthesizes and regulates complex waveforms which replicate the exercise physiology, and it is experienced as either fast-paced or resistance physical training. The device has two waveform control knobs corresponding to generation of total 24 complex square waveforms. Each waveform is synthesized by 4,000 sine waveforms and a specific resultant frequency ranging from 55 Hz to 888 Hz. It generates muscular contractions, each sustained for 8 seconds with a 2 seconds of rest time. There are no known side effects of this technology, and the only contraindication being an implanted device like a pacemaker. The design of our study was as follows. 20 obese and overweight adults were selected from two different clinics. The age ranged from 15 to 82 years. Average BMI was 35.4%. There were 11 females and 9 males, and all of them were diabetic or pre-diabetic. 15 subjects were of Indian descent and 5 of them were Caucasian. The inclusion criteria for the study was BMI less than 45, age about 12 years of age, controlled hypertension or controlled hypothyroidism at least 3 months after surgery or childbirth. And the exclusion criteria for the study were pregnancy, an implanted device like pacemaker, severe uncontrolled hypothyroidism or hypertension, renal or hepatic disease, cancer, or any other severe medical condition. The subjects were administered total of 12 treatments at the interval of 3 days. So the total study duration was 1 month. They were given some general diet instructions like increasing their vegetable and fruit intake, increasing lean protein intake, and reducing the sugar and oily food intake. All were instructed to continue the medications that they were already taking. Measuring instruments included blood tests to measure the lipid profile, fasting and postprandial glucose and insulin levels, a conductance scale which measured the BMI, weight, fat percentage, visceral fat, and skeletal muscle mass, tape measurements to measure the upper abdomen, umbilicus, and lower abdomen measurements. 7 subjects reported their sonography test findings before and after the treatment, and a structured interview to assess the back pain. Now, these are the results of the study that we found. This is the table showing reduction in the BMI and the weight, and this one shows the reduction in the measurements of abdomen. The results are as below. Average centimeter loss from upper abdomen was 9.65. Umbilicus was 10.2 centimeters and lower abdomen was 11.5 centimeters. Average weight loss was 6.4 kgs and the mean reduction in BMI was 6.98%. Now, the average measurement loss in centimeter was higher than the kgs lost, suggesting that fat was reduced and the skeletal muscle mass was improved. This is further supported by the results found on conductance scale, which show that the average overall fat loss was 16.99%, average reduction in visceral fat was 21%, and average improvement or increase in the skeletal muscle mass was 20.99%. Now, visceral fat reduction appeared to be more significant when compared to the overall body fat percentage reduction, possibly suggesting that visceral adiposity reduction was consistently attained by all the subjects. When we plotted fat loss and the visceral fat loss against age, we found that the visceral fat decrease appeared to decline with age. possibly suggesting that older individuals with diabetic or pre-diabetic condition require more treatment to control their visceral fat. The results on blood glucose and insulin levels found that almost all the subjects, the blood glucose levels, both fasting and postprandial, reduced to the normal range. Insulin also reduced, which was in pre-diabetic patients, which was raised initially, reduced to normal range at the end of the treatment. The results on triglyceride level shows that almost 75% of people achieved normal levels of triglycerides, and in 25%, although the triglyceride was still little high at a borderline range, there was significant improvement when you compare to the pre-treatment levels. Even HDL levels improved in almost all the subjects of the study. 7 people who had fatty liver in their sonography reports before treatment showed no evidence of hepatic steatosis in their sonographies after the treatment. These are some of the pictures, before and after pictures of some of the subjects who participated in the study, which show significant reduction in the abdominal obesity and visceral fat. So overall, in conclusion, the study showed significant improvement in blood glucose, improvement in insulin resistance, reduced dyslipidemia, and significant reduction in visceral fat levels. Overall, the results were encouraging in terms of using this method as an alternative to exercise or as a supportive to exercise, offering an improved health status and weight loss within a short period like 1 month in obese individuals. These are some of the other studies which we have conducted using the same technology. And these are various clinicians across the globe who are helping us with studies using the same technology in various areas like visceral fat reduction, hormonal balance and metabolism, lipid and cholesterol, inflammation and oxidative stress reduction, diabetes, wound healing, etc. So with that, I would like to end my presentation and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this conference. Thank you.